Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Diyana Binti Muhammad Rusdi and my matric number is 277791. Today, I will talk about construction technology. In construction technology, its process is very important and the main step prior to its execution in site. A process is defined as a system of operations in the design, development, and production of a project. First, I will talk about project lifecycle. Whether you are working on a small project with modest business goals or a large, multi-departmental initiative with sweeping corporate implications, an understanding of the project management lifecycle is essential. There are 4 phases of the project management lifecycle to keep your project organized and on track from initiation to close. First, initiation. You need to identify a business need, problem, or opportunity and brainstorm ways that your team can meet this need, solve the problem, or seize this opportunity. During this step, you figure out an objective for your project, determine whether the project is feasible, and identify the major deliverables for the project. Second, planning. Once the project is approved to move forward based on your business case, statement of work, or project initiation document, you move into the planning phase. During this phase of the project management lifecycle, you break down the larger project into smaller tasks, building your team, and prepare a schedule for the completion of assignments. Create smaller goals within the larger project, making sure each is achievable within the time frame. Smaller goals should have a high potential for success. Third, execution. You have received business approval, developed a plan, and built your team. Now, it's time to get to work. The execution phase turns your plan into action. The project manager's job in this phase of the project management lifecycle is to keep work on track, organize team members, manage timelines, and make sure the work is done according to the original plan. Fourth, closure. Once your team has complete work on a project, you enter the closure phase. In the closure phase, you provide final deliverables, release project resources, and determine the success of the project. Now, we go to the activities that involved during the construction project. All of the activities involved in construction work together to create great projects, build buildings, and impressive structures. Not every activity is used in every project, but it is certain that several different activities are used in order to build a safe, efficient, and functional structure for its users, no matter what that structure may be. There are about 11 or 12 different types of construction activities. There are marking and grading, excavation, concreting, carpentry, brick masonry, plumbing, welding, electrical, roof laying, glazing, and lastly, finishing. I want to share a video about 12 steps of construction. So, let's take a look.
12 steps of construction. Once the construction drawings and other related documents have been completed and approved by the authority in jurisdiction, the project will then be awarded to a contractor by the client through a consultant. In this period, the construction of the proposed project will begin. Construction can be summarized into 12 stages. 1. Clearing of the ground. To begin the actual construction, the clearing of the ground from where the location of the project will be built is the first thing to consider. The construction personnel task is to free the construction site for any obstruction and debris that may obstruct and delay the construction. The temporary facilities such as engineer's office, labor's quarter, material storage room, temporary water, and electric supplies and other related facilities should also be constructed prior to the start of work. A site perimeter fence should also be constructed during this period. 2. Site layout and staking. This activity involves the setting of the reference points in a form of construction grid lines and marking off the gate level. This is performed to ensure that the grids have been set up on site according to approved plans. The reference point should be marked properly and should not be disturbed throughout the course of the construction. Grid lines according to the approved drawing should be laid out prior to construction. Depending on the complexity and size of the project, the construction grids can be laid out through the use of theodolite or related surveying instruments. A more traditional way of the layout of the construction grid is popular to use for small projects is through staking using batter board and strings. Batter board are temporary wooden frames used to suspend the strings. The strings are the representation of the grid lines at X and Y directions according to approved plans. These will serve as a guide throughout the construction, so it is important to fix a reference line in both directions to be used once the grids have been placed when needed in the construction. 3. Excavation. Once the layouts of construction points and grid lines have been completed, the excavation works begin. The excavation depth depends on the recommendation by the Soil Investigation Report. But it is safe to say that the minimum excavation level for the footing to rest should stick to 1 meter below the gate level or the 0.00 level. Excavation works is a massive activity, therefore a proper caution should be observed during this stage. In the event that the excavation needed is along with the neighbor's existing structure exceeding 1.20 meter from your proposed level, then shoring support is recommended. 4. Compacting and laying of PCC. Compacting of the excavated surface should perform once we reach the desired excavation level. A layer of crushed gravel is then to be added during the compacting. In a standard compaction procedure, the final compacted layer should be checked in order to reach the desired degree of compaction to not less than 95% of the maximum dry density. It is then in this stage that an anti-termite treatment on the ground should also be considered. The laying of PCC or plain concrete cement should follow afterward in preparation for rebar works. PCC is usually composed of a 10 mm thick lean concrete for the footing rebar to be laid evenly leveled. 5. Foundation rebar and column starter bars. Once the laying of PCC has been set up, the rebar works for foundation and any foundation beams are the next activity. In this stage, the reinforcement of foundations is being prepared according to the structural schedule along with its formworks. The proper and standard concrete cover should be observed during this procedure. Starter bars for columns should also be installed accordingly before concrete pouring. 6. Concreting of foundations and column rebar installation. Concreting of foundations has to come next after the rebar works. The concrete to be poured should be properly vibrated for the concrete, especially the aggregates, to fully spread into the footing. Installation of column reinforcement on the previously installed column starter bars should be continued. A proper concrete cover should consider before closing the formworks. For substructure columns, an additional concrete cover of at least 50 mm has to be considered up to plinth level to protect the rebar for possible corrosion due to sulfate attack. 7. Concreting of column and bitumen paint applications. Once the concreting of stub columns has been completed, give time for the concrete to dry completely and apply at least 2 coats of bitumen paint for both footing and stub columns. Bitumen paint helps in absorbing moisture due to the soil to prevent seepage into the substructure concrete. 8. Setting up perimeter blocks. Install solid blocks along the perimeter or the edge of the proposed project. This is to establish a boundary between the inside and outside edges of the project. It is also helpful when the difference of inside floor finish level to outside pavement or ground level is significant. 2 coats of bitumen paints should also apply afterward. In some cases, perimeter blocks are optional, especially for areas where the soil characteristics are too firm. 9. Backfilling and compacting. Once the substructures like foundation structures including the solid blocks have been installed completed, backfilling and compacting should take place. Backfilling and compacting should be done partially to make sure that the required degree of compacting has been met until reaching the bottom of the tie beam level. 10. Tie beam reinforcement, grade slab, and concreting. Preparation and installing the tie beam reinforcement as per the approved drawing is the next step to consider after the backfilling and compacting. Formworks with standard concrete cover are also included in this stage. Once the reinforcement works have been completed, we can start the concreting. Installing of grade slab mesh and concrete work is then to be followed. 11. Rebar works and concreting of columns. At this stage, the substructure component of our project has been completed. It is now time for the project to go up. The next thing to consider is the rebar works, shuttering or formworks and concreting to be done. Prior to concreting, we see to it that the columns follow the structural schedule. The formworks should be vertically level and a standard concrete cover has to maintain prior to the closing of forms. 12. Beam and slab works. Once the ground floor columns have been cast, it is time to prepare the project for beams and suspended slab reinforcement activity. Like any other structural members, beams and slab reinforcement should be followed strictly. Shuttering or formworks for slab and beams should be properly anchored and checked prior to concrete pouring. Step 11 can be repeated accordingly until such time that the structural frame or the core and shell of the structure has been completed. The architectural finishing works are then be followed. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more.
Next, who are the key players in a construction project? There are many stakeholders organizations in the architecture, engineering and construction industry. Here, I will tell you the construction organizations that play an important part in the realization of construction projects. Firstly, the client. The first type of construction organization is the client-based organization. The CIOB Code of Practice for Program Management in the built environment defines a client as the entity, individuals or organization commissioning and funding the project directly or indirectly. Secondly, the contractors. Traditionally, clients have been engaging contractors to carry out building project construction works. They are the people with the technical know-how to get the structures off the ground. Considering the scale of the work being carried out, the contractors could be in several other categories such as main contractor and subcontractor. While the main contractor is concerned about all the works involved within a project and is accountable to the client. The subcontractor is often only responsible for a certain part of the works, for example, electrical engineering, plumbing, or landscape. Third, suppliers. Supplier means a party that supplies goods or services. In construction, the goods include any materials that go into a built structure, while services refer to all different work packages agreed upon by different parties pertaining to the development of the built structure. Fourth, consultant. A consultant is defined as a person who provides professional or expert advice in a particular field of science or business to either an organization or individual. In construction, the advice varies from time to time depending on the stage of the project. Next, project planning and controlling. Project planning is an important tool that managers use to break a large, complex project into smaller steps. Project planning requires gaining an understanding of exactly what the final desired project outcome is and defining the steps that will be required to achieve that outcome. Project plans for construction projects allow project managers to chart out all of the tasks that are required for a project and gain an understanding of the total resources required to complete each task. The project plan will include how long each task will take and the sequence that each task must be complete. Project controlling. As you start a project in the planning stage, the project controller helps you with the planning of the cost and schedule portion of the project. When the project goes through its life cycle, the project controls team get involved in different aspects of cost and schedule management in the project. A successful construction. How we want to make our construction to be successful. First, we need to make that construction is finished in time and within the budget. These goals are indeed needed to be reached for a project to success in the eyes of all stakeholders. Although projects must meet their cost, time, and quality targets, broader success criteria need to relate to the project's primary objective. Those aspects of the scheme's delivery that will provide the anticipated benefit. That's all for me. Thank you.